Hello, everybody. My name is Theo, and on behalf of FP Markets, we thank you very much for watching this video. In this series, I'll be covering all the latest news with regards to the crypto markets. But before we dive right in, please like and subscribe, as it means a lot to us. And of course, feel free to visit our Traders Hub. This is home to a wide array of educational materials, such as articles and videos. But you can also find essential traders tools, such as an economic calendar and a forex calculator for managing risk. Now, all this information, of course, is provided and included by Trading Central and is applicable to all our account holders. Now, diving into this week's crypto news, we'll start with the technicals first. Bitcoin so far has seen a negative day. We've seen a drop from around 70,000 down now to around $67,750, with a support approach of around $66,000. Overall, the week itself, since last week, there hasn't been too much activity. We've seen 1 or 2,000 up or down, give or take. But as we've mentioned in previous weeks, it's always going to be a little bit choppy post the Bitcoin halving region. But so far, we can also see a bit of a trend line has been forming where it's been respecting so far. If we see a respect of this trend line, then there's no reason why we can't continue in this limbo position, approaching the 72,000 region. However, if we do have a break of this trend line, then we could see a potential approach down to the 66,000 and more importantly down to the 62 and $60,000 region. Now, why has Bitcoin been seeing some of this negative news? Well, the news itself probably stems from Mt. Gox transfer today. Early hours of this morning, Mt. Gox transferred approximately $9 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is around 107,000 Bitcoin, to one single address as a potential part of a repayment plan. Now, for those that aren't aware of who Mt. Gox were, they were the largest Bitcoin exchange, the largest crypto exchange when the crypto space started opening up in the early 2010s. In 2014, Mt. Gox were forced to close due to a massive hack that lost them hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, which was a huge amount of money back then. But now with the latest appreciation in the price of Bitcoin, it's a lot more money, as anybody can imagine. $9 billion, so over 140,000 Bitcoin was transferred from the Mt. Gox wallets to an unknown address in 13 separate transactions. And this could be a possibility as a part of a repayment plan to their creditors by the 31st of October 2024. Now, this, of course, is not going to be considered a very positive thing, as when there's such a big amount of Bitcoin that's going to come into the space, and it's off the backs of investors that have lost money over so many years that would want something back, it could be speculated that they would see some sort of sell-off. So that could be potentially the reason why we've seen a bit of a sell-off this morning with Bitcoin. It's understandable. The next support, as we've mentioned, could be around the 66,000 region. If we have a breakage of this, I wouldn't be surprised to see us around 62 to 64,000. Now, as far as it comes to the Mt. Gox situation, this is big news, but it's something that has been around for a long time, where it has been, I won't say it has been priced in already, but it's one that's been expected because we've known about the Mt. Gox situation for a long time, where they've had funds that they had to start paying back. It's just been a case of when. Now, as far as it comes to Bitcoin, that's the news for that. Ethereum last week was an interesting situation. As we discussed, there was a major spike. It was off the news that the SEC had approved the ETFs all of a sudden, including, of course, BlackRock and Fidelity's ETFs, respectively. Now, why was this such surprising news? Well, because we've discussed in the past, especially with the Ripple situation, with how much trouble that they've had in this situation for them. Their case has been open for several years now, and they asked many, many questions, even though Ripple submitted all their documents. With the ETF for Ethereum that have been approved, the SEC doesn't seem to be having so much more due diligence or asking as many questions. Now, this isn't me saying this. This is Cathie Wood saying this. Now, Cathie Wood is the CEO of ARK. She has stated that the crypto regulations, or especially the Ethereum ETFs that have been approved, have been very much because of the election, that it stands as one of the components that could help one of the candidates with their election. She actually said at the consensus meeting 2024, when they were talking about the Ethereum ETFs, she said the read was it was not going to be approved. It was absolutely not going to be approved. If it were to have been approved the regular way, we would have been getting questions from the SEC. No one one was getting questions from the SEC beforehand. The other thing that happened was former President Trump had become more cozy with Bitcoin and crypto generally. That week, he said he would have been accepting campaign donations of crypto. As we'd also discussed in previous videos, this was always going to be a one-up for Trump, as he didn't have any problems with crypto, how he'd kind of flipped it on his head comparison to the tweets that he'd mentioned a few years before. He said as long as there is right direction, as long as there is a adequate regulation for it and people want it, then he doesn't have a problem with it. Whereas on the other hand, President Biden was doing his best to try and deter anybody from the crypto community from voting for him because of the fact that the last 4 years that his administration has been in charge, not much improvement at all has been happening in terms of regulation. So this is where Cathie Wood has said that this is an election issue for crypto now. It isn't necessarily because they necessarily mean it. So maybe it's a case of we should be taking it with a pinch of salt. However, there are still a few months to go until the election. Cryptocurrency itself overall in this last year has seen growth. Ownership has hit 562 million with a 34% increase this year. So again, once again, it's continuing to show that this space is not going anywhere. It's going to continue to grow. And unless the right governments start implementing the correct regulation, it's only going to hurt their economies. Speaking of this, the SEC Commissioner, Hester Peirce, has proposed a US to UK digital security sandbox. So this is trying to have a bit of an innovation in the technology between the space in terms of blockchain technology for securities trading. As I've mentioned in the previous video, that as we are entering a more of a tokenized society, a digital society, it would only makes sense, and it's also in fact inevitable that we're going to start getting into a tokenized world as well, with real world assets being tokenized. So with this proposal now by Hester Peirce proposing this digital sandbox, it is only again showing in the right direction that there is a need, there is a demand, but there is also plans now in place as well to start trying to move forward with blockchain, with DLT, distributed ledger technology, and see where this can go. Because at the end of the day, it's only going to harm one's economy, and the more they wait for it, the more it's not going to do anybody any good, because it's an inevitability. So this was the news so far for this week. On a technical perspective, we've already mentioned the price regions for Ethereum. Since the news remains positive and nothing has come out just yet, there's no reason that we'd see any crash anytime soon. However, if there is any kind of news that's going to kind of debunk any of this ETF approval, because it hasn't been completely greenlit yet, then I'd expect to drop back down to 3,486 region, back down to 3,333. However, if we continue this momentum, then there's no reason why we can't hit the 3,900 to 4,100 region. That's for Ethereum. With Bitcoin, as we've said, it's continuing to drop as we've been speaking in the video, approaching 66,000. If we drop to 66, I wouldn't be surprised to see 62 to $64,000. However, let's not forget that the institutional investors are there. There is continued growth, as we've continued to see from our previous article here, how the cryptocurrency ownership has hit growth, has hit also 34% annual growth. And institutional investing, especially in this last year, come January, has been a significant rise as well. So we're only entering June in the next 1 or 2 days. So we're still very early on in the year, especially considering that the elections are still to come, and there's going to be a lot more to spice up there. We've always said post the Bitcoin halving that we're going to see some choppiness up and down, but overall, it's been heading up in an upward direction with our approaches back down to the $66,000 region. We shall see what happens until next week. Thank you once again for watching, everybody. If anybody has any questions, then of course feel free to comment down below on the video. Please like and subscribe once again. If you need anything else, we're available 24/7, so feel free to come visit us at www.fpmarkets.com. And until next week, I wish everybody a great weekend, and I wish you all the very best with your trading as well. Thank you very much, and goodbye.